never believed in ghosts. As a detective in a sleepy coastal town, my days were filled with petty thefts and occasional domestic disputes. That was until the Anderson case fell into my lap, turning my rational world upside down. The Andersons, a family of 4, had moved into the old Henderson mansion, a decrepit structure with a history of unexplained occurrences. The locals whispered about it, always quick to cross the street to avoid walking past its iron gates. I always laughed it off. Superstitions had no place in my line of work. It started with a phone call. Mr. Anderson, a stern man I'd met a few times at town meetings, sounded panicked. "Detective, you need to come over. It's my daughter, Lily. She's talking to the walls, saying she can hear voices." Skepticism was my initial reaction. Maybe the girl had an active imagination or needed psychological help. But the urgency in Anderson's voice was hard to ignore. Lily sat in the corner, her knees pulled up to her chest. She looked at me with an unnerving calmness. "Emily doesn't like visitors," she said in a monotone voice. I asked Lily questions, trying to understand. Her answers were cryptic. "Emily's lonely. She wants her mommy. She says she can't leave until she finds her." The air in the room felt heavy, charged with an unseen tension. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head. Over the next few weeks, things escalated. Objects moved on their own, cold spots appeared throughout the house, and Lily's conversations with Emily grew more intense. Despite my skepticism, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something unnatural was at play. I drove to the mansion on a foggy Tuesday morning. The house loomed like a sentinel, its windows like dark, watchful eyes. Mrs. Anderson, a pale, fragile woman, greeted me at the door. Her hands were trembling. "Lily's in her room," she whispered, leading me up the creaky staircase. "She's changed since we moved here. She talks to someone named Emily. Says Emily lives in the walls." In Lily's room, the scene was unsettling. Drawings of a little girl around the same age as Lily covered the walls. Some were playful, but others were disturbing, showing the girl, Emily, with dark, hollow eyes. I started digging into the history of the Henderson mansion. The more I uncovered, the more the pieces began to fit together in a macabre puzzle. Emily Henderson, the youngest daughter of the original owners, had disappeared without a trace over a century ago. The case was never solved. Driven by a mix of curiosity and a growing sense of dread, I visited the local library to go through old newspapers and town records. The librarian, an elderly woman with a wealth of local knowledge, provided a chilling detail. "Emily had a friend," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Another little girl who lived nearby. They were inseparable until Emily vanished. That girl, she was Lily's great-grandmother." The revelation hit me like a cold wave. Was Lily somehow connected to Emily, reaching across the barriers of time and death? As I delved deeper, strange occurrences began happening around me. Whispering voices in my apartment, shadows flickering in the corner of my eye. I couldn't tell if it was my imagination, or if Emily's presence was reaching out to me too. With each passing day, my skepticism crumbled. I visited Lily frequently, hoping to understand her connection with Emily. The Andersons were at their wits' end, torn between concern for their daughter and fear of the inexplicable happenings. One evening, as I sat in Lily's room, the temperature dropped suddenly. The little girl's eyes glazed over as if she were in a trance. "Emily is sad," she whispered. "She can't find her mommy. She's trapped." Trapped. The word echoed in my mind. I needed to find out what happened to Emily Henderson. My investigation led me to an old, forgotten case file in the police archives. The details were scarce, but one thing stood out. A locket, Emily's locket, which was never found after her disappearance. Armed with this new information, I returned to the mansion, determined to find the locket. I had a hunch it was key to unraveling this mystery. The search led me to the attic, a place time had forgotten. Dust-covered trunks and faded portraits created an eerie tableau. In the corner, behind a stack of old furniture, I found it. A small, heart-shaped locket, tarnished by time, hidden away as if waiting to be discovered. The moment I opened the locket, a wave of emotions hit me. Grief, fear, longing. Inside was a tiny portrait of Emily, her eyes as hollow as the ones Lily drew. That night, the activity in the house intensified. Doors slammed, lights flickered, and the air was filled with the sound of a child sobbing. I rushed to Lily's room. She was standing by the window, the locket clutched in her hand. "Emily wants to go home," Lily said, tears streaming down her face. I realized then what I had to do. I needed to find Emily's resting place, give her the peace she was denied. The next day, I scoured the local records for any clue. A breakthrough came in the form of an old map showing a forgotten section of the town cemetery. The sun was setting when I found the unmarked grave, hidden under an overgrowth of ivy. The air was thick with a sense of finality. I placed the locket on the grave, a symbolic gesture to reunite Emily with her memory. As the first star appeared in the twilight sky, a gentle breeze swept through the cemetery. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a sense of calm. I knew without a doubt that Emily had found her peace. Returning to the mansion, I found the Andersons packing their belongings. "We're leaving," Mr. Anderson said, his voice devoid of its usual sternness. "There's too much sadness in this house." As they drove away, Lily looked back at me, her eyes clear for the first time since I'd met her. "Emily says thank you," she whispered, before the car turned the corner and disappeared from view. The Henderson mansion stands empty now, its windows no longer watchful. The townspeople still avoid it, but the air of malevolence is gone. I often visit Emily's grave, a reminder of the case that changed everything I believed about the world. The detective in me still seeks rational explanations, but the human part has learned to accept that some mysteries are beyond our understanding. In the whispers of the wind, in the rustling of leaves, I sometimes hear a child's laughter. It's a sound that no longer fills me with dread, but with a sense of wonder at the mysteries that lie just beyond our sight. And so, the story of Emily and Lily, a tale that spanned generations, found its end, or perhaps its beginning.